You're drowning in problems you're never going to solve. You're trying to fix everything at once, spreading your limited resources thin and wondering why nothing meaningful is ever changing. But sitting in a coffee shop in Chiang Mai last week, I figured out why this approach is killing your impact, and more importantly, what to do instead. If you're feeling buried by the endless urgent problems, if you're new here, my name is Vaughn Littlejohns. For the last 10 years, I've been focused on strategic leadership in transformational educational change. And my current role as a Director of Technology and Innovation is leading me through this path of finding never-ending problems that aren't ever going to be solved. So in this video, we're going to break down the exact strategies that we need to do to cover when we're looking at being so overwhelmed by the endless things that seem like they're urgent and important, and how we actually can manage that in our day-to-day lives. So the other week I was feeling extremely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of problems that I was identifying, because the more I dug, the deeper the problems seemed to go. Now, why was this a big issue? Well, for the last 4 years, my current school hasn't had a Director of Technology and Innovation. And the problem with that is that has left sustainable and foundational level issues that have not been addressed and cannot be addressed with a simple band-aid solution. And this is more and more common in educational workplaces. This is not a new thing. And I just wanted to cover today, how do we deal with this level of complexity when it comes to situational change management, but also the ability to strategically plan the action and the execution that we actually need to make the impact that we want, and to build the sustainable systems in place so that we can actually focus on what actually matters most. Where is stress born from? Well, we all get stressed. We all go through stressful situations and we all deal with things differently. But ultimately, stress, it comes down to the lack of action on a specific problem that we know we can deal with, but we just can't deal with it right now. It might be something that is out of our control, but it might be too overwhelming. It might be too much for us to handle right then and there. And the stress or the dread that we feel by all these things that are building up, that leads to us feeling fatigued, burnt, and just lost or hopeless on where to go next. I really want to just come back and give you a high-level overview of how do you actually manage the stress, but also strategically plan to actually execute on the things that are important. Because there is a simple thing that I learned recently, and I just have to continue to learn, that if you've only got 2 years in a role, if you're only got there for a year even, and you are in a relieving position or you're new to leadership, that you can't do it all. You need to choose your monster. Not monsters, not all the problems, the monster. What is the single most purposeful problem that you are going to tackle that'll have the biggest impact for your staff, for your students, for your community, and also for you? Because when we look at the why, and Simon Sinek breaks this down really, really nicely. He said the why, the center of why you do things, the real calling on the foundational level of why we do what we do, it's actually broken down into 2 who's. You as always, number 1. What is this going to do for me? How am I going to get affected by this? Can I do this? And the second who is related to the external. It's related to the impact that it's having. It's related to the thing that you are trying to solve. Then you can support others or other programs or other situations. When we're looking at stress and we're looking at understanding which monster to battle, which monster to figure out, we need to focus on the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because there is a framework by Covey when it comes to time management, and it's a 4-quadrant system. Basically, you've got urgent and unimportant, urgent and important, and then you've got the 2 lower levels, which basically are just busy work. They're distractions, they are things that don't really matter. And what he would suggest is we stick to quadrant 2, which is all around long-term planning, relationship building, and things that actually have bigger impact in the long term. But more importantly, when we are trying to get to that level, it is the first thing, the important and urgent, the one that we're in leadership and we have our open door policy and things just keep coming through and coming through and coming through, and every single problem seems urgent. But if you've ever gone to, say, a hospital wing, they are very, very good at triage, meaning moving this scale between what is most important to least important and making sure everything is dealt with, but just at a timely manner. Now, when we are new to leadership, when we are not even new to leadership necessarily, but we are new to these problems that we are dealing with, sometimes we can get into that feeling. And I did personally, well, I needed to do digital literacy, I needed to do AI policy, I needed to do AI management and professional development. I needed to do all these things on top of learning management systems that are not functional, finance systems that are not functional. There's all these problems that seem like they're urgent right now. But the thing is, when we just take a step back, we zoom out and we see what is actually important for us and comes back to that why. And it's the 2 who's. You are always number one. It's part of our nature. But then the second why, or the second who, is really going to be the thing that gets you through the tough moments. Because when we choose that monster, when we choose the thing that we're going to focus our time on and then delegate and distribute the rest and provide assistance where we can, but this is number one priority, we can then really understand our time, our energy, our resources are used effectively, and we can manage and measure that. Because we think about strategic planning, there is really one point to this. And people get it mixed up all the time. What is strategy? It is literally the allocation of resources to a single purpose. It is finite resources, lots of problems. Which one are we going to strategize? Which one are we going to prioritize? And the thing is, a traditional and a purist form of strategy is one priority, not 3, not 5, just one. What is the one thing? What is the one shot you're going to take and take out this monster? Because remember, the bigger the monster, the better the story will be. Because you can go back to the analogy of David and Goliath. It is that idea that this small person takes on this massive monster, and then it makes history, it makes fables, it makes stories. But when we are in it, it's very hard to pull ourselves out. If you don't have other strategies of well-being and focus and mindfulness, I suggest you just do a little bit more background research. But things that I do personally, I go for walks, I journal, I write, I speak to cameras, I go and talk to a coach. I do these things to clarify my thinking and to keep me on track. Because when we're looking at strategy, when we're looking at prioritization of the number one thing that we could shoot our shot towards and make sure it's on target, we are actually trying to eliminate all other distractions, because there's going to be infinite problems, but you've only got enough resources to tackle one and one well. When we're looking at this concept of strategy and strategic planning, begin with the end in mind. We're coming there first. We're going, what do we want? And this comes down to our why, because when it gets hard, and it will get hard, and other things will come in, competing priorities will come in, it is the ability to say no. It's the ability to delegate those to others with the expertise in those areas, and the ability to then execute on the thing that you have been chosen, or even you've chosen yourself to go and manage. Whether you are revolutionizing and transforming your digital literacy and the technology integration in your school, or you are in a faculty who is just trying to build curriculum and implementation and get better results for their students, it doesn't matter what your scope is. It really just matters about what is the specific monster you are going to deal with. Now, I take it back a few years When I was new to head teacher, I noticed that there was a foundational lack of resourcing. There was no assessment, there was no program, there was no infrastructure that was sustainable. And the reason I say this, because as a new person, I went in feeling overwhelmed, under-resourced, and had no idea where to start. And then when I took over as the leader of that team, the first thing we did was we wrote our strategic plan. We got our number one goal, and for us, that was the digitization of resources to create a sustainable system so that we can roll it and roll it and roll it and basically have a foundation that set the tone for the communication that we wanted with our staff, with our students, with our teachers, with our parents, with everyone, to say, hey, look, we're here for business and we derive quality results. And it did. Within a couple of years, we had flipped that faculty and we had actually become the highest performing in the school. And then took that model and then I placed it in different contexts. And then I've done that basically in every other thing I've done. And it's not to brag, it is just to highlight that when we're looking at strategic leadership, your role, even if it's in your personal life, is to identify what is the thing that is going to move the needle the most. What is the thing that is going to give you the most impact for your time and energy? Because when we can prioritize that, then it is so much easier to ignore those distractions. And for someone like myself who gets a thing called shiny object syndrome, meaning you see something cool and you actually go and try that. Oh, look, this one looks sick. I'll go and do a bit of time on that. What we end up doing is a little bit of everything and not much of a lot. Basically saying that our impact is then distributed and it is surface level rather than deep. And a mentor used to say to me, stop going wide, go narrow and deep, and making sure you are actually going under the surface of this problem and you're solving the root cause. And why is this such an important component? Well, as I said before, I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling like this is too much. And when it comes to other goals, other aspirations, other things in life, I was chatting to a close friend recently and they were saying, why not start now? Why wait? Why doubt yourself? I can see you can do that. I can see you can have anything that you want and you can go and do the specific things that we're talking about. Why not now? Here are a few simple questions but very uncomfortable ones to answer. And if you can answer these and you can get clear on your why, then you can take the action that you need to take to get the results that you were looking for. We always ask ourselves, am I ready? Can I do this? But if you haven't seen the last video I made, that we have this teach first mentality. If we can think about learning something, just even 20%, and then teach it to others, we get better at learning. The question of, am I ready? You're always going to feel underprepared, uncertain. But the thing is, the most successful people aren't fully prepared. They aren't certain that it's going to work. They take the risk and they go and live the life that they want. It brings you to that second question is, why do I want this? Why do I want to deal with this problem? Why is this problem for me the one thing I'm going to focus on and the one thing that I want to create better results for? And the third question is, will it give you the life that you want to live? The thing is, there are so many problems to solve in our daily lives, in our professional and our personal, but is this thing that you're trying to focus on going to provide and set you up for the life that you want? Whether it's time freedom, place freedom, financial freedom, what is it that you are wanting to create? Because you might be driven by contribution, you might want to connect with others, you might want to earn a promotion. There's all different reasons for why we do things. At the end of the day, is it living the life, or is it going to give you the life that you would like? We just got to remember that strategy isn't just a fancy business term. It is literally a way of life. It is a way of looking and prioritizing our resources, our time, and our money, and our experience to the things that we want to solve. And we've got to remember that problems magnify way quicker then solutions. They will manifest, they will become more and more, because you'll notice it. You'll find one thing and then you'll pull this string and it just keeps coming and it just keeps coming. Oh my God, I need to fix that, and then that, and then that, and then that. That's why when we're picking our one thing that we need to deal with, and this one thing could be massive and we can break it down into small components, but it's just understanding that principle. The problems will magnify quicker than the solutions. Here's how this actually works in practice. We want to learn lots of stuff. We want to build lots of stuff. You don't need to understand fully what you are trying to solve, but you need to understand that you are in it and you are dealing with this thing in front of you. You identify the problems, you solve them through action. This is the thing. When we're feeling stressed, it is lack of action. The action is the thing that actually resolves our stress. The action towards a progress or milestone is a thing that says, hey, we're in control here. We're not out of control. And stress is a symptom of feeling out of control. Reflect on what you're doing well. Do this through diaries, through video, through coaching. It doesn't matter how you do it, but reflect on what you do well, because our brain is naturally going to try to find what is not working, rather than, there's a simple question in coaching, is what went well today? And it's to focus back on the gratitude, back on the progress, back on the things that are actually moving that needle. Because when we don't, we focus on, I'm not enough, I don't have enough time, money, experience, love, connection, whatever it might be. We can feel stressed again, rather than feeling that we are in control, we're taking action, and we understand what's for us. And here is the part that most leaders miss, is we need to fail as many times as we can till it's unreasonable for us not to win. I was recently chatting to another friend, and they were saying they've given themselves 12 months to fail as many times as they want and have fun doing it. And that I thought was amazing, because that mindset, that shift to go, hey, look, I'm not going out to solve all these different problems. I'm here to fail and have fun doing it. And they're experimenting all different things. But it came back down to, they made that call. Their call was to fail. And the failure only actually happens if you give up. And if you stop, then it's a real failure. You just got to remember, the opportunities that are presented with us won't last forever. What is the one monster that you are going to take the shot on, and how are you going to document and reflect on that process to keep yourself in the game, accountable, and not overwhelmed by what if, how do I do this, should have done that. It's what is happening now, what is working well. Let me know in the comments, take that single action. What is the one monster that you're going to tackle, and why are you excited to tackle it? Because remember, the most emotional driven decision is the more impactful one for you. If you link more positive emotion to this thing that you are challenging, you will enjoy the process. People don't just get up and say, hey, I want to run a multi-million-dollar business. I don't want to lead a school. They do this because they love the process of doing it, not just the end result. When we're thinking about the problem that we want to solve, why do we do what we do? We come back to the why, the hows, and the two whos, and then we can actually deal with these problems that we want and do so in a grateful and happy way, showing up. If this has helped you get some sort of clarity with your strategic planning, with your understanding of how do we deal with real complexity when it comes to professional, personal life, hit the follow button, like and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Remember, effort equals results. Have a great day.